What is up, guys? Randomodium here with your Week 1 Fantasy LCS predictions. In this video, I'm going to break down all of the matchups for Week 1 to give you guys the best information possible for your starting lineups for Week 1. So without further ado, let's get into it. So for those of you who don't have time to watch this entire video, I'm going to give you guys kind of a quick TLDR, and I'm breaking the teams down into 3 different groups: easy points, risky plays, and bench warmers. So for the teams that are easy points, you can pretty much play any player from those teams, and you're guaranteed to get decent amount of points. So those teams are H2K, Immortals, G2, CLG, Fnatic, and NRG. Any of those players from any of those teams should get a decent amount of fantasy points this week. For the risky plays, these are teams or players that most of them will do worse than the easy points players, but some of them will do better. So this is kind of the gray area. And I'm going to go into a lot more detail further on in the video, which is why you should watch the entire video. But those risky teams are Echo Fox, Team Liquid, TSM, Splice, Vitality, Unicorns of Love, Origin, and Cloud9. And then the teams that should be the bench warmers, pretty much all of these players you should probably have on the bench this week are Envy, Rockhat, Shox04, Apex, Phoenix, and Giants. So let's go into the nitty-gritty details of all this. So next to every single player and team, I'm going to have their matchups for the week, and I'm going to have a win or a loss next to each one of their opponents. If the win-loss is in white, that means I think it's going to be a normal game, no real surprises. It'll probably last, 30 to 35 minutes, a normal amount of points. If the win-loss is in red, that means I think it's going to be a stomp, which could either mean that the winning team is going to get a ton of points because they're going to just rack up a lot of kills, or they might not get as many points because the game will end too soon. Finally, if the win-loss is in blue, that means that I think the game is going to be really, really close, or possibly an upset. And these are the games that usually cause players to get high amount of fantasy points because it's a really long game. It's back and forth. There's a lot of kills, a lot of objectives taken. So these blue games are the ones where you could possibly see some of those risky teams. They could actually wind up with the most points for the week because they wind up winning a really close game. So for our teams, the S tier teams for this week, I have H2K, Immortals, G2, and CLG. I think they're all going to go 2-0, and they should have pretty easy weeks. For A tier, I have Fnatic, NRG, and Echo Fox, who I also think are going to go 2-0. For an upset, I have Echo Fox beating Cloud9. Echo Fox has not really changed their lineup at all, so I think they've had plenty of time to practice. On the flip side, Cloud9 has had a lot of changes to their team. They don't have High as their shot caller, so I think that in Week 1, Cloud9 is going to be really rusty and not look as good as they normally do. So I think the Echo Fox will actually beat them in a close game. For the B tier this week, I have Team Liquid, TSM, and Unicorns of Love. For the TSM versus Team Liquid matchup, I have that being a really, really close one, with TSM just barely edging them out, but I do think that it could go the other way. I do think that Liquid could upset TSM. And then for Unicorns of Love, I have them losing to Origin, but I also think that'll be a really close matchup that could swing the other way. For the C tier teams, I have Vitality, Splice, Origin, Cloud9, and Envy. For Vitality, Splice, and Origin, I think they'll all go 1-1 this week, but they'll have at least one close game. Cloud9, as I already said, I think they're going to go 0-2 this week, but they could potentially beat Echo Fox, but I do think they will lose to Immortals. And then the remaining teams I all think are going to go 0-2, which is going to definitely hurt the amount of fantasy points they score. So moving on to the top laners, I have Huni, Odoame, Kikis, and Darshan as my S tier for this week. This is mainly because the teams that they're going up against, they're most likely going to win. So I think that that'll allow them to rack up a lot of fantasy points. For A tier, I have Quas making a triumphant return to the LCS. Energy has a pretty easy week this week, so I think they will go 2-0. And then also I have Gamsu and KFO. For B tier, I have Cabochard, Lorlo, and Hanser. Cabochard should rise up in the rankings as the season progresses. However, there's a lot of questions about the new Vitality lineup. So that's why I have him at B tier, but I expect him to rise up to A tier or S tier as the season progresses. Moving on to C tier, I have Vivisachi, Impact, Seraph, Soaz, and Wonderwear. Vivisachi was one of the top fantasy point scorers last split. I think there's a lot of questions about Unicorns of Love as well. He probably will go up in the standings. And then Impact, of course, is a great top laner, but they have a very hard week this week, so I think that he's gonna struggle a bit. Seraph is a top laner that is vastly underrated right now. He's really good. I think he's a really great person to have on your bench. And then once Envy starts picking up steam, he's going to be a great kind of pocket pick to have. And then kind of rounding out the D tier, I've got Ray, Steve, Parang, Zig, and Smitty J. And then for a couple of those teams, it's not clear who the starter is. So that's especially why I would keep all these people on the bench this week, because we really don't know who's starting for Apex and a couple of the other teams. Okay, for the jungle, my S tier, I have Rainover, Trick, Yankos, and Smithy. I don't think there's any surprises here. A tier, I have Santorin, Spirit, and Hard Santorin for NRG. Just because NRG has a really good week this week, I think he's gonna surprise a couple people. For B tier, I have Svenskeren, Amazing, and Move. Move being from Unicorns of Love. Formerly from Gravity, he did very well on Gravity, so I think he will come back pretty strong into the LCS. Moving on to the C tier, I have Moon, Meteos, Mighty Bear, Proxen, and Trashy. Moon is the jungler who's expected to take over for Dardoch for Team Liquid, because Dardoch is right now suspended. So I think that he's going to struggle, right? He hasn't practiced with the team as much as he probably would like to. So I think he's going to probably struggle this week. Meteos coming back for Cloud9. It's not a good week for Cloud9, but I think he will do better. And then rounding out the rest of the D tier, I've got Airwalks, Gilius, Shrimp, Inori, and Maxlore. Okay, moving on to mid lane. No surprise, I have Perks at the top. He's definitely established himself as a dominant mid laner. Pobelter is right on his heels. And then rounding out the list, I have Ryu in GBM. GBM definitely moving up to that S tier spot just because he's proven that he's a very good top laner. And NRG just has a really good week this week. For A tier, I have Fevabin, Huni, and Phoenix. Phoenix is probably a little bit of a surprise to some people because I am saying that Team Liquid would go 1-1. But both Phoenix and Piglet put up tons of fantasy points, regardless of how poorly or how well Team Liquid does. For B tier, I have Froggen, Bjergsen, and Nukeduck. I know a lot of people will be mad at me because Bjergsen is B tier this week. That's simply just because TSM typically does not start off very strong with week 1. That's just how they've been pretty much every split. They always have a poor week 1. Moving on to C tier, I have Power of Evil, Jensen, which I know a lot of people are going to not be happy with, but as I said before, Cloud9 has a very difficult week, and I think that he's going to struggle. Ninja is, he's got a lot of hype surrounding him. I think he's a really good mid laner, really undervalued, so I'm curious to see how he does. Fox, of course, is a great mid laner, and then Senkux. A lot of these guys are really good. It's just a problem that mid lane is stacked right now, so a lot of these guys are getting pushed down to C tier when, a lot of people like to see them a lot higher than that. And then rounding out the D tier, you've got most of the people who are brand new to the LCS: Exile, Keen, Betsy, Pyrene, and Knight. Okay, AD carry, I have Sven at the top. Now representing G2, followed closely behind by Wild Turtle. A lot of people might be surprised, but I have Freeze at the number 3 spot. Freeze, he's really undervalued, and now that he's on actually a decent team, I think he's going to rack up a lot of fantasy points. And then Stixay for my last S tier person, who obviously is coming off an amazing run at MSI. For A tier, I have Reckles, Piglet, and OHQ. OHQ being from NRG. And then obviously Piglet is up there because he always puts up a ton of fantasy points, regardless of how Team Liquid does. B tier, Keith, Double Lift, and rounding out the list with Forgiven, now on Origin. Then moving on to C tier, I have Sneaky, Steelback, Police, Veritas, and Kabi. I know a lot of people think that Sneaky belongs higher, and he will rise up the list higher. It's just that, as I've said, Cloud9 has a really bad week this week. And then for D tier, Laud, Mr. Rallis, Apollo, Mash, and Sunstar. Okay, finally, support. Obviously, I have Adrian at the top. He was the top performer last split, and he's just a god at support. So, yes, I'm going to have him at the top of my list. And then Mithy is right behind him with Sven now on G2. And then rounding out the S tier, Vander and Afromoo. I don't think there's any surprises there. In A tier, I have Yellowstar, Kiwi Kid, who is now on NRG, and then Big, who is on Echo Fox. Moving on to the B tier, I have Matt from Team Liquid, Biofrost, who's the new support for TSM, and Hybrid, who is now on Origin. C tier, I have Kasing, who's still on Vitality. I think Kasing definitely is more worthy of an A or a B spot, but there's a lot of questions surrounding Vitality, so this week he's C. Hillisang, obviously from Unicorns of Love, he's another very good support player who will probably rise up in the rankings once the Unicorns of Love proves that they're back to their normal ways. And then rounding out the C tier, I have Bunny, Fufu, Raze, and Minx. Bunny Fufu is taking over for High, so there's definitely a lot of questions surrounding the shot calling for Cloud9. And then for D tier, I have Akuo, Spraddle, X Special, who's listed as the starter for Apex, but we're not sure. And then Gate and Hustlin rounding out the rest of D tier. So that's pretty much it. Once again, for the summary, you can't go wrong with H2K, Immortals, G2, CLG, Fnatic, or NRG this week. If you do your research and you feel like you've got a good inside track on some of the matchups, there's definitely some players on Echo Fox, Team Liquid, TSM, Splice, Vitality, Unicorns Love, Origin, and even Cloud9 that can all rack up some good fantasy points this week. And you should definitely avoid people on Envy, Rockcat, Shoxa 4, Apex, Phoenix, and Giants. So that's pretty much my summary for week 1. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you liked it, please give it a thumbs up. Please leave comments if you have any questions. And if you like the content, please subscribe. I've definitely had some people ask me, why am I not advertising a lot more? And that's really because, self-promotion only goes so far. It definitely helps whenever you guys share the videos or whenever you post them. So it's not just me who's advertising, because, everybody thinks that their own YouTube videos are great. But if somebody else says that they're decent, that definitely helps me get more subscribers and more views. So I really appreciate it whenever you guys, post my videos other places, or definitely hit that like button or hit that subscribe button. So anyway, I hope you guys have a great day. This is Randomonium signing off.